Welcome to the Tactical Dent Tech Podcast. You are now part of a small underground movement of dent technicians from all over the world. We are on a mission to change our industry with innovation, intelligence, and skill. But because we don't rely on an insurance company to steer customers our way, we need to do things different. We need to do things smarter. We do that through a network of technicians that we call the Tactical Tech Movement. Now let's get this revolution started. Hey, what's happening, everybody? John Hiley here and Angela Hiley live, motherfuckers, live as fuck.
Live, my bitches.
Oops, I just put you right out of frame. And it is the Tactical Dent Tech Podcast.
Whoop, whoop. Holla.
So, we got an interesting night tonight. I can't really remember what we were going to talk about, No, so for some of you listeners who may specifically just be listening on audio, and you may have not, like you motherfuckers, I don't know how many times I try to tell you, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. You guys who haven't, did not see that last week on Sunday, I wrote a post, and I talked about one of the reason that I stopped drinking. And it took a long time for me to even write that post.
Yep.
But one of the first reasons, it was in January of 2019. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why it took so long is because, number one, I'm out there in the public eye, and we had a legal issue going on for a while.
Yep.
And the legal issue was so serious that my attorney pretty much told me not to even talk to a friend of mine who was a police officer.
Yeah.
Because he pretty much reached out to me and told me that, like, dude, I'll do anything for you. I'll help you out. I'll do whatever I can. You know, whatever you need to do. I contacted my attorney. He says, absolutely not, John.
Nope.
And let's just take a step back, though, before we actually get into the story. And we'll take a little step back because I really hope that this podcast and this live stream does a few things. And I think that it will, because I want to hope that I can help other people that may have been specifically in my situation. Mm-hmm. And I've already had actually quite a few people actually reach out to me and let me know that just the post that I had wrote a week ago had helped them tremendously. And I think a lot of times, y'all, we live with these things that happen in our life, and you know, we kind of go into a shell and we don't really want to talk about them. We don't want to tell anybody. I'm notorious for making light out of situations. It's almost like I will laugh my way through like anything. And to be honest with you, there's certain situations that are just very hard to touch back on. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is, like, ultimately, and I've said this from the beginning, the only people that I had ever owed an apology to was my family, and, you know, primarily my family and myself. So this is by no means is an apology to anybody. But it's just more along the lines of, you know, hey, like, learn from my fuck ups and learn from somebody like me who was able to hit rock bottom. And it's interesting because when I actually did hit rock bottom, and we'll go into detail on that here in a little bit, but when I did hit rock bottom, you know, the greatest part about that is there's nowhere to go but up, you know? And
well, you can either go towards the light, or you can go even further.
Even further into the dark. And so a lot of you guys may have known if you followed me for a while. If you haven't followed me for a while, then, you know, I'll let you in on a little bit of backstory. When I was a kid, I mean, I used to drink all the time. I mean, that was what we did as a kid. We would either drink, we would smoke weed, we would eat LSD. But it always, for me, there was always drinking involved in all of that. And my mom would always tell me, John, you know, drinking, that's going to be it, like, and he would say it's nothing but trouble for you, like nothing but trouble. And I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. I mean, everything from upwards of probably, I think I was in like I had like about 30 assault charges pressed against me when I was a kid. All the way from, a lot of you guys might remember the story that I told, and I also told it on stage here in Dayton, social media Dayton, that I also got hit for trafficking LSD when I was, what was he, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Was I 20? So, yeah, we had just literally, the police got me when she was pregnant, and then they came back and got me after they indicted me.
And Jonathan was only a couple weeks old.
And Jonathan was only a couple weeks old at that time, and that's like a wake up call. And still drank, at that point, and me and her drank for quite a while. Like our early parenting and all that stuff, we had a lot of fun. I mean, we had parties, we had, a lot of you guys know that are out there that are in the automotive dent removal industry, how much money you can make, and we're out there living it up and partying and all this kind of stuff. And there was one day that I had too much, and I came to her, and we just went like cold turkey on it. And I actually, we quit for 8 years?
The first time?
Yeah, the first time.
Yeah.
So we quit for about 8 years the first time. And talk about, gaining a lot of accomplishments during that time. Mm-hmm. And I still remember the very first night, though, when me and her both had given it up. And might I add that we had financial problems back then. And that time that we gave it up, we were actually living in my parents' house.
Yeah. We moved out and then we moved back.
Right. So we moved out and we moved back in. And maybe we gave it up for more along the lines of about 10 years. Because how old were we during that time? Was we about 24, 25? When we lived?
During that time, we lived out in the farmhouse. And that's when we went to Indianapolis to do hail.
Yeah. So anyhow, long story short, there was a couple steads,
Yeah.
We had, like early on, we had financial issues that I think was driven completely from drinking, and probably a lot to do with like, I will start drinking, guys, and it seems okay for a little while. And the next thing you know, I'll start drinking during the day and stuff like that. And
you couldn't control it.
We realized that it was a problem. I've got a family full of alcoholics. Mm-hmm. Whether it's my biological mother, all of her problems came from drinking. My biological father has spent his entire life in prison. Yeah. Now, I don't really know if all of that's from drinking. I know a lot of it's from drugs and things like that. Mm-hmm. Bad fucking drugs, But that being said, I was adopted when I was a kid. So a lot of times when I talk about my mom and my dad, I'm really talking about my grandparents, because I was encouraged at an early age, about 6 months old, to, they adopted me. So they were my mom and my dad. So that being said, throughout, we just had it was a reoccurring problem for me. Like anytime that I'd ever been in trouble, anytime that I'd ever had any issues, it always had alcohol involved. So, here we go. It was probably, was it 2018 that we picked up drinking again? She kind of picked up drinking first. She said, hey, I'm going to casually drink here and there and this and that. And I still stayed away from it. I knew that my past troubles.
I just want to be clear, though. I've never had a problem with, like, substance abuse or anything like that. So when, I guess, I don't know. I just, when everything had happened, I never understood. I'm like, can't you get your shit together and like get this under control? Like, I didn't understand why he couldn't get it under control. And I couldn't understand why he could drink so much.
Yeah, boy, I could put down a lot, y'all.
I don't know if it was like some denial or something, or.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. You had some problems because there was many times you got wasted out of your mind, and yes, did have a bit of a drinking problem, whether you want to admit it or not.
It wasn't.
But maybe it wasn't as bad as my drinking problem, but you had a drinking problem. So that being said, it started out, where we had a couple drinks one night and we decided, maybe we'll do it here in a couple weeks. And next thing you know, 2 weeks later, we would do it on another weekend night. And then it just slowly kept getting more frequent. So we would say, well, hey, Friday and Saturday night's coming. We're going to do it on Friday, Saturday night, have a hangover on Sunday, and then we would work out the rest of the week. Well, little by little, that throughout the 2-year period that I started drinking again, that went from Friday and Saturday to, Thirsty Thursday. So now we're adding an extra day into the week. And then little by little, we would find excuses throughout the week to have a few drinks here, have a few drinks there. And I'm just like the kind of person, I've always been this way, that once I start drinking, like I'm going to go, and I'm going to get fucked up. And it's very bad. It's very bad on your health. It's bad. It makes you feel horrible. It changed me into, I really can't, I can explain it. I was a different person during that time. I had a lot of it's like it creeps up on you. The more that I drank,
was that Mr. Jekyll and Hyde?
The more anger I would build up. Like I would start to build up anger, and I'm not like an angry person. Like now that I haven't been drinking for over a year and a half, like I'm the nicest, most gentle. I mean, maybe I am a little bit of an aggressive, business person and stuff like that. I don't fuck around. I don't let people in my space but I'm not angry. I'm not mad. I'm not angry inside at anybody, if that makes sense. And I believe that the alcohol made me that way. And it brought out
get like a glaze.
Yeah, it brought out something inside of me that it brings out something inside of me that's not good. Not good at all. I don't know if any of you guys can relate. I'm sure, and I know that there's happy drinkers. I mean, my adopted father, which is my grandfather, I mean, he was the most happy-go-lucky drinker I've ever met, unless he drank whiskey. So that was the thing. If he drank whiskey, like everybody knew, but if he just drank beer, which was 90% of the time, 99% of the time, he was very happy-go-lucky, whistling all the time, and just a happy person. I would start drinking, and I would literally, there's many times that I almost got in fights inside of bars. I've almost attacked several people. And still, even during that time when I wasn't drinking, I still carried some sort of anger. I mean, I even almost, I had a semi-truck driver one time that pulled or he honked at me as he was driving past me in the parking lot of one of my shops. And I literally jumped out of my vehicle and ran up to the side of his truck and said, dude, what the fuck you think you're doing? You don't drive past me and honk at me. Things that there was like an anger buildup.
But you also started treating Jonathan and I differently too as well.
I think it affects every aspect. You're right. No, I think it affects every aspect. And so, moving forward, drinking Thirsty Thursday and whatever, Funsy Friday, Saturday, whatever you want to call it. We would call it something on Sunday because we had our tactical podcast on Sunday, if you guys remember that. So we were drinking Sunday nights as well because that was part of the tactical podcast experience. Some of you guys remember them late, crazy nights on the Tactical Dent Tech podcast that we would have guests and stuff like that. I mean, that was a Sunday night, right? So here we are. I mean, it's so now I'm drinking more nights than I am not, And on the nights that I'm not drinking, I'm feeling irritable as fuck. I'm literally going like you could literally tap me on the shoulder. I'd be like, what the fuck you want? Because it got to the point to where drinking is what relaxed me. I even, if you're looking back, man, the craziest thing, and I hate to give props to a time in my life that was like this, but looking back, I accomplished a lot of shit. I mean, I accomplished our major fucking events, our very first event, our second event, our third event, and was it our fourth? Did we do our fourth? Was the fourth one in Greeley?
Oh, you're on probation.
Okay. All right. Yep. We'll get to that.
In Colorado.
We'll get to that.
But here's the thing, that you might have been able to accomplish those things, but you weren't your full potential.
Yeah, definitely not my full potential. I feel my full potential now. But that being said, it turned into something to where I was doing podcasts during the day. And I would have to have a couple drinks just to loosen up because I was so irritated all the time. Like if I didn't have a couple drinks, I was irritated, and I was good with a couple, 2 or 3 drinks. But the problem is, man, I just keep going. And there was like a happy in between where I was comfortable. I felt good. I felt alive, and then there was that as it kept going, it continuously got worse. And then you get fucking drunk. Right. So there was some happy in between in there. And I was trying to catch that when I was doing interviews on podcasts, stuff like that. And promotional stuff. I mean, but what little by little, I started feeling like I would go in during the day and I'd be like, man, I just don't fucking feel good, man. So I would go over to my refrigerator and start taking a couple shots in the middle of the day.
And I had no clue this was going on.
And
John started hiding it.
Yep. So I would literally go to a restaurant for lunch and I would drink 3, 4, 5 beers, right? And then it started to be these things that were occurring where I would literally go off to lunch and start drinking so much that I would decide to just fucking stay there half the night.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
call. Me and Jonathan are worried to death. There was one time where I had to call the Centerville Police Department because I had no idea where my husband was. He was not answering his phone calls. This was not his normal behavior. Here, Jonathan and I thought something seriously happened to him. And here he was across town in a parking lot, sleeping it off. And then he gives me a call around midnight and telling me how ashamed he was because of what he did. And I'm like, do you know that I had to call the police because Jonathan and I are like fucking worried about you, thinking that something could have like seriously happened?
And the police officers like know me around here. So, I mean, they all like pretty much like hang out and park beside my shop and they come into my shop and all this. So literally like a cruiser was sitting on my street waiting for me to come back. And I was like, when she told me that, I'm like, well, fuck that. You're going to have to come pick me up at the shop. I went and parked behind my shop, went in the shop because I probably would have I would have had a DUI.
Yeah.
And so I'm in my shop that night after that happened, and the police officer comes, or I just hear a knock at my door. I figure it's her. I walk up to the door, open it. It's a police officer. And I look at him. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, man. And he just looked at me and goes, are you all right? I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, that's all I need to know. And he jumped in his cruiser and left. And so that being said, guys, so what started happening was a reoccurring theme. It was drinking during the day. Honestly, like, I don't really know that I was getting to the point where I didn't care about the way anybody felt about my actions.
Nope.
I mean, even when it came to going to the Mobile Tech Expo, when it came to, I didn't give a fuck about what anybody thought. Like, I just felt like I was going to do whatever I wanted to do. And if anybody had any problems with it, they can go fuck themselves.
And the thing is like, John's behavior started getting erratic. And here I was trying to keep everything together with a big old smile on my face, holding everything in, not letting anybody know what was going on. Because in my mind, I thought, I can help him get this under control. We can get this shit together and we can figure out a plan. And the Mobile Tech Expo, when we were there in January of 2019, the way that he was, I said, after it was done and over, I said, I told myself, I was like, I'm done with this, because I was like, I can't even enjoy myself. I was his babysitter. I was preventing things from keeping him out of trouble. I mean, Steve Camperson and Jay Gearhart helped me as well. And, I have told them, I said, thank you so much. But I think what it is like they didn't really realize the extent of what was going on. So then when we get home from the Mobile Tech Expo, we're supposed to have this huge snowstorm come in, like sometime that week. And this is when everything went to shit. John had some jobs, and he...
No, hold on. I want to tell the story. Yeah,
okay.
I want to tell the story. So she's jumping in the story. All right. Hey, guys, what's up? Where's them hearts on there? We're sitting here pouring our heart out to you. You better give me some hearts here, guys, because we're going to hopefully share this message and help some people. So, All right. So that being said, y'all, ended up getting some repair work done early on that day, and that was a Wednesday, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was a Wednesday.
Yeah. So, hey, we love you too, Crystal. So it was a Wednesday, and we ended up getting some, had a few repair jobs. I ended up getting them done pretty much before noon. And I went ahead and drove down to the Oregon District, and I went over to
in Dayton,
kind of like downtown Dayton area. Some of you guys who came to our Dents for Kids charity, stuff like that. You guys,
not the safest place.
Yeah, not the safest place. Some of you guys have went there with us before down there in the Oregon District. And I went down to a restaurant called the Thai Nine and ended up started out drinking like Jack Daniel and Coke. And I really have no idea why I actually went that route. And, just downing Jack Daniel and Coke after Coke and eating lunch. And I just figured, I was going to stay there for like 3 o'clock and then, obviously drive home partially drunk. Which is a horrible fucking idea, but you don't really make good decisions when you're drinking a lot. No. So, ended up being around 2 o'clock or so. And I said, you know what, man, I'm kind of getting tired of this place. Let's go over to the next bar. And ended up heading over to the next bar, the Trolley Stop, had them pour me some drinks there. And that is probably about... I do remember going into, there was a bar down the way called the Hole in the Wall. And I remember going into the Hole in the Wall and having them pour me a couple drinks there. And I remember talking to some people while I was there. And I do remember at that time, she was tracking me on my iPhone and ended up, I couldn't make any phone calls. So when somebody puts your iPhone is lost... on the computer.
Let me interrupt you. And the weirdest thing, when we were in Florida, John lost his iPhone. So I knew what the username and the password was, which is so weird because when all that stuff had went down, I was able to find out where he ended up being.
Yeah. So, and then I technically couldn't make any phone calls at that time. Because when somebody puts that your iPhone's lost, it locks you out of the ability to make any phone calls at all. But that being said, apparently, I didn't even know this until later because I lost one of my credit cards. Apparently, I went to another bar, and that one was, which bar was that? Whatever, it's like a real heavy rock and roll type bar.
Yeah.
And I bought another drink there, Blind Bob's. And from there, I don't fucking remember anything. Like, I don't remember walking back to my car. I don't remember getting in my car. I don't remember anything at all. The only thing I remember from that point on, so I'm going to tell you where I woke up, and then I'm going to step back and give you like an account of what the police report said. Because from the time that I went from Blind Bob's, which I don't even remember that. I don't remember going into Blind Bob's. I remember going into the Hole in the Wall, and that's the last place I remember. And I actually had my system, they checked my system, and I was looking for, because they did a blood test on me and was looking for drugs and all that shit, and I was looking for like a roofie in my system. Like I had been drunk, but I had never been so drunk that I like literally could not remember shit. I mean, I've always heard the term blackout, but I have never experienced a blackout like this. So I'm going to tell you where I woke up. I actually woke up in the hospital inside of an MRI machine. Literally happened to piss like a fucking racehorse. Thank God I didn't piss myself. And all of a sudden, so I wake up and I see these lights around me and I start shaking, and they pull me out of this MRI machine and I'm handcuffed to the rail. And I'm going like, I look around the room and I'm like, oh my God, I got to piss so bad. So they brought me over something to piss in. A urinal thing. And I'll tell you guys something funny. I know I always deflect to something funny, but so I go piss in this urinal thing, and I asked the nurse, I'm like, why am I here? I'm like, why am I here? And she's like, you need to ask him. And there's a police officer standing over there, and he goes, hey man, he goes, you were, and I'll recount the story here in a minute. But he said, here's what happened. And he kind of gave me his whole side of the story and this and that. And he ended up sitting down in the chair next to me. And I actually made friends with that dude. We talked and we talked and we talked. He stayed there with me the whole time, and he started laughing. He goes, dude, I have never heard anybody piss as long as you did. He's like, you took the longest piss that I've ever heard in my life. And he's like, dude, it was like 5 fucking minutes or some shit like that, right? So that being said, when I was in the hospital that night, he basically said that, they came up to my car. I'll tell you what the police report said in a minute. They came up to my car, and I'd fell asleep in my Corvette. And the first thing he told me, he goes, you were sleeping in your Corvette and we found you. And I'm going, oh my God, thank you. Because one of the first things that occurred to me, I was like, did I fucking getting a wreck and kill somebody? Am I sitting here facing a murder charge or some shit because I got into a wreck and fucking killed somebody? That's the first thing that occurred to me. And he goes, oh, no, man, it's not that bad. He's like, it's kind of bad, but it's not that bad, right? And but it was kind of bad, actually. It was fucking.
That was very bad.
It was bad.
It was
right?
very bad.
So I take a step back. And he told me, he goes, we tried to wake you up, and man, and he just kind of you could just tell he was a cool dude, he was a cool cop, And he just told me, he's like, dude, we just tried to wake you up, and he's like, man, he just glossed over all the little details. He goes, we tried to get your handcuffs on, and he's like, you were like the fucking Incredible Hulk, man. He's like, how much do you bench? And that's the way he was talking to me, and I'm like, oh man, he goes, dude, we were trying to get your hands apart. He's like, we couldn't get your hands apart, man. And so anyhow, another officer came in. He goes, yeah, man, that was a crazy night and this and that. And they went on to tell me that he goes, well, the thing is though, man, you hit one of our other officers. So there was 2 officers in there, and there was 4 of them that arrested me. And he told me that I hit one of the other ones. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, is that a felony? And he's like, yeah. He goes, that's a felony. He goes, man. He goes, but hey, he's like, you didn't do he never had to go to the hospital, anything like that. You didn't hurt him. He's like, it should be okay. They normally drop these charges and all this kind of stuff. So he was telling me this kind of stuff. And I'm like, look, man, I told him who I was. I told him that I owned a body shop locally, what I did in the community and all this kind of stuff. And they literally tried to, that night, these 2 officers were actually so cool that they tried to go and talk their captain into dropping the charges that night. He wouldn't do it, okay? Because number one, I hadn't even seen myself yet. You guys think about this. I woke up, I hadn't even looked at myself yet. It wasn't until they came by and cleaned me up and they turned a mirror on me that I seen that I was fucking pulverized, man. I mean, not only did I get beat with probably...
They beat the dog shit out of John. They beat the dog shit out of John so bad that they could have killed John.
Yeah, it was really, really bad. I mean, my lips were all busted. Every single part of my body from my head to my toe was bruises, Yeah. And don't say they don't just beat up black people, man. Because I'm white and I got my ass kicked. And they tased me 15 or 16 times. They said they hit me with the first taser and I ripped them out. And then I rolled to my back as they were trying to pull me out of the car, and they hit me with my second group of tasers and tased the fuck out of me. And they said that after they tased me, it still didn't stop me, is what they told me. There was no footage of this, guys. There's no footage, so I can really only take an accountability of what I've been told. But I will tell you that, is it unrealistic that if I was that drunk and somebody tried to wake me up in my car that I wouldn't try to fight them? It's not unrealistic for me to think that, okay? So I don't doubt that I was putting up a fight with trying to get arrested. I do not doubt that at all. So that being said, I'm in the bed, right? And the police officers, they're like, hey man, your wife is here.
No, here's the thing.
Oh, hey, hold on. Shiloh asked if I showed them my white privilege card.
John don't have no fucking white privilege card.
Listen to me. The white privilege test that everybody was taking, I took it and I failed the first 10 questions, bro.
Exactly.
Yes, people do walk to the other side of the road to avoid me. Yes, people will stop to get into. Yes, I scare the shit out of fucking white people when I come off an elevator. Yes, I've had the dog shit beat out of me by the police. Yes, I've been harassed by the police my whole life. Not saying that this one was... They overdid it big time.
Yeah, they did. They
over fucking did it big time. That is 100% for sure. And they felt bad, man. You could tell. And even my attorney, he stepped back and he said, dude, he goes, they didn't know who you were. They said they just seen a dude that looked like you sitting in a car like that. And he goes, he thinks that they thought that I was in a stolen car. And the thing is, they never turned on their lights, so we never had any camera. So we never had any cameras on us. The only camera footage that we had
was at the very end.
And it was kind of good they took this footage because it's what helped me get out of shit, is that one of the police officers grabbed me and then dropped my face on the concrete, like when I was pretty much knocked out.
So here's the thing, right? So the only footage that they have of the entire situation is basically John is fucking knocked out cold, okay? And they're treating him like a piece of shit, and they're treating him like a fucking rag doll. And it was horrible. It was so fucking horrible. The way that I found John was, of course, I logged into his phone again, or was able to log into his phone from my phone, see where his location was, and he's at the hospital. And I'm like, why the fuck is he at the hospital? Here I call the hospital, and they're like, yes, your husband's here. And I'm like, well, can I come down and see him? I have no idea what's going on. They're like, well, we don't know if you can see him because he's being arrested. I'll give you a call back within like 10, 15 minutes. So they give me a call back within 10 minutes, and they're like, yes, you can come down here. Drive down there, dark, driving to downtown Dayton, which I do not like to do. And I get there in the emergency room, and it's like, the emergency room, they got metal detectors, they got police officers standing here, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? I sit outside in the waiting area for a fucking hour. The police officer comes out, he's talking to me, he's asking me these questions, and I'm like, this does not sound like my husband. Like, I told him, I was like, his mom passed away in September. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, but this is so out of his character. And they're like, well, sit out here for a few more minutes and then we'll take you back. So they take me back and I see John and I'm like, he's crying. And I'm just like.
So one of the cool things is I actually got along with the police officers well enough where they were like, dude, we'll just let you see your wife. They let her come back and see me. Yeah. They let her actually stay with me for like an hour without taking me to jail. Like they could have.
They honestly knew that like what they did was wrong. And they knew that like the way that they profiled or looked at John, then they talked to me, they're like, these are just nice people.
Yeah. So, like, I felt that the police officers felt so bad about the situation. They really did. I could tell, like, at the end. And especially they knew that I was doing, like, charity work in our community and all this kind of shit. Like, you could tell in their eyes that they knew that this was, like, it was a bad situation for everybody. Like, they wish they hadn't have done it. And was like I wish that I hadn't been there.
There was two wrongs that had happened. And then the attorney had to come in and make it right.
So, that being said, let me keep going. So one of the police officers actually ended up driving over my Corvette, got her the keys out of my Corvette, and that was cool. He didn't have to do that. And my iPhone was almost dead, and they charged my iPhone for me on the way to the jail. These are like the little details, right? So I go and get to the jail, right? And, they put me in. They're actually like, I actually felt like we got along really well. And they're like really sad to put me in jail, okay? So long story short, I ended up in jail for the weekend, and I go in front of a judge.
No.
For that week, but I got out on Friday. And I go in front of a judge, and she puts me on an ankle bracelet.
John was on house arrest.
So I was on house arrest for a couple months. My attorney, who I had hired, who was a fucking absolute stud. In fact, he was a prosecutor for the Vandalia court system up here. And the dude was a fucking absolute stud, okay? And he ends up putting all of this together and gets me off of the house arrest thing within so many weeks or whatever.
It was like it was 2 months, but let me say something. So there was what?
No, go ahead.
So in order for John to be home when they put him on house arrest, I had to remove all of our firearms. And my dad actually came down on his birthday, got all the firearms, and took him to a safe location. So that way John was able to come home. But one of the things that I thought that was really messed up is when we got the police report and the medical records, is when they brought John in, he kept repeating, "Why do you hate me?"
Yeah, that was something they actually put in the medical records. The doctor said that I just kept saying, "Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me?" And what I think had happened to me, and again, I can't remember. My attorney like begged me. He's like, "Dude, can you remember anything?" You know, and I'm like, "I can't remember anything, man." He was like, I think that I thought that that they weren't even the police. That somebody apparently they came up and whacked my window with the nightstick a few times, trying to wake me up. And then the way the Corvette is that if the keys are in it, you can just open the door. So they opened the door and they tried to extract me. And I was so drunk that I was in a blackout mode that I thought that I was being like my car was being stolen and that I was being taken out of my vehicle and then getting the shit beat out of me. That's and literally, and that's why I kept saying, "Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me?" Is because that's probably the only thing that my mind could go to as a default defense mechanism is like, why do these people hate me? Why do they hate me? What's happening? Why do they hate me? So that being said, you know, to make a long story short, my attorney got that ankle bracelet thing taken off. He went in and we actually got, now I will tell you guys know that I'm conservative and this and that until I need a judge. Then I want a liberal judge because we ended up getting one of the most liberal judges. And this liberal judge was easier to work with. So we ended up getting the deck deal to us where we got the best judge and the youngest prosecutor. And my attorney literally went in there and had them waive a right to my speedy trial and had them drop everything down. Like they were trying to hit me with a DUI and they were trying to hit me with an assault on a peace officer, which is a felony 4, I think. And then the DUI, which would have been, whatever, it's an escalating charge. So if you get 2, you get 3, you get 4, next thing you know, you're in prison, although I'm never ever going to drink again. But that being said, my attorney actually had them sign. I had me sign a waiver, skip the whole indictment phase. He knew how to work the back end of the court system to get me the fuck out of there. I mean, he went to him and he said, "Dude, look at this situation. Look what happened. There's no footage." Like literally, the police officers, the department wasn't even bringing them any evidence. So my attorney gathered all the evidence and was bringing it to the prosecutor, and sat down with the prosecutor and said, "Man," he goes, "we need to get this felony dropped." So they dropped it. They dropped it down to a resisting arrest and to a control, which basically means really what the charge should have been, because a control is like, even if you're in your car and your keys are somewhere where you can grab them, your keys aren't in the fucking trunk. It was in the middle of the winter, so I had my car on and I had my heat running, and literally they can get you for a control, meaning you had control over a vehicle. You may not have been driving it, but you had control over a vehicle during that time. So they actually put that charge the way that it should have been, and they also ended up dropping the felony down to a misdemeanor and made it a resisting arrest, which is pretty fucking close to as rock bottom as you can possibly get, y'all. Literally coming home on an ankle bracelet after the beating of my life. Like, I remember staying in jail and I couldn't even hardly get up on the beds. Like, I had to sleep in a top bunk, and I'm sitting there trying to get up in there. I can barely lift myself up to even get in the bed.
Was calling me every hour on the hour, and I'm like,
which was a good thing because we ended up getting like, it was over Martin Luther King Day that last year. So if I would have stayed the weekend, I would have had to stay on that Monday. And she did everything in her power to get me out, because they came to me and said, "You're out, whatever. You're going to have to be on this house arrest thing. But you got to be very proactive on your end, because they're not going to call you. They're not going to make it easy for you. They're literally going to push you back, and they're literally going to make it to where it's hard." And she pulled all the right strings, got everything together, got all of the guns out of the house during that time. And
I got all of our firearms out of the house within an hour, and then John, they had him to the house probably like 30 minutes after that. I mean, it was just like, I had to do so many things that I never thought in my entire life that I was going to have to do. I had to go get money out of the bank. I had to drive to downtown Dayton. And Dayton's just not like, it's just not one of the safest areas. I had to go into the jail. I had to post bail. I had to, even when he was on, house arrest, it was like, okay, we go to the shop. We have to call before we leave. We have to call when we get there. We have to call when we leave the shop to go back home. I mean, and then all of our normal routine things, like, that was thrown out the window. I was basically doing pretty much everything, and John was just...
They actually said that I was the best guy on house arrest that they've ever seen. Because, like, I, like, overdid it, you know what I mean? And, but, I mean, that's just to say, guys, what I guess what I could tell you guys more than anything is recognize if you have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, recognize if you have a problem and it's getting out of control, and don't wait until I did. Listen to me when I tell you guys this. That was the only thing that was going to stop me. Like, I still say to this day that I seen my mom, who was in heaven, jumping down into one of them police officers' bodies and beating the shit out of me, and like literally jumping down there because look, you could not have convinced me to change. I had Mike Toledo, my business partner, one of my best friends, in my ear telling me, dude, you need to think about this. Like, he knew that I was unmanageable to talk to about things. Everybody knew that it was either my way or the highway. I was not going to listen to what anybody had to say.
But the thing is you saved yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody, that was like one of the biggest lessons that I learned. It was that I wasn't going to be able to save John. John had to save himself, and it was, and in all honesty, like, it was really sad seeing him, because I'm like, we worked so hard for all this stuff, and you're just like going to piss it down the drain for what? Fucking alcohol.
Yeah. So, that's my biggest takeaway from this is, like, I had to hit rock bottom, guys. I had to have that moment. And it was enough to, like, wake me the fuck up and say, holy shit, wow, this was like literally one, what if you would have hit 3 of them officers, right? They say that I did, but maybe I did, you know what I mean? What if you would have hit 3 of them, this could have went left like one step further, and I could have fucking lost my life. I could have went to prison, I mean, there was a lot of wake up fucking call. I could have went to prison over this one. I mean, the judge knew that I had been convicted of a felony. When
that was like a long time ago.
A long time ago. He goes, well, it was 17 years ago, but I see it. I know it's there, right? And he actually sentenced me to like AA. So I went to AA meetings. He sent me to some sort of drug and alcohol class.
John lost his license for 6 months, so I had to drive him around.
It was 3 months, wasn't it? It was 3. He tried to give me 6 months, and then Tony talked him down to 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he wasn't even supposed to. He wasn't even supposed to take away my driver's license. And my attorney, he goes, "Yeah, it's recommended." Like literally, I'm in a felony court. Like, regardless, even though they dropped the charges down from a felony to a misdemeanor, you still have to appear in front of a felony judge. So I'm in front of this judge. They don't even know how to fucking prosecute. They don't know how to charge me. So they're literally relying on my attorney to coach them through this. So the prosecutor, my attorney, and the judge are huddling, and Tony's like, no, this is what it is, and showing them the laws and stuff. They're looking on a fucking iPad. I shit you not. So the judge goes up and he goes, and you got a mandatory of 6 months. And Tony, I look over at my attorney and I'm like, Tony looks over at me, he goes, may I approach the bench, judge? So the judge is like, yeah, sure, whatever. They turn on that thing, Tony goes up there and he goes, no, there's no mandatory license, there's no mandatory, license suspension. And the judge gets off and he goes, just to prove his point, he goes, well, you know what? There's no mandatory license suspension, but I'm giving you 3 months anyway.
Oh, I did not like that. Having to drive
yeah.
John, because it's John's the one that does all the driving. I'm that big driver. And it's just like, it's just like, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah. So, that being said, that's why I truly quit drinking alcohol. And there's some of my friends during that period of time that went through some shit and they had no idea what I was going through. And I lost some good friends during that time, because they had no idea what I was going through. I didn't tell anybody. I mean, Mike is the very first person that I had ever told about this. And I couldn't come out on my podcast and talk about this shit, man. Well, not to mention somebody who didn't like me. And there's maybe some of them out, I know there's some of them out there, could send it in as evidence. I mean, that's how fucking serious it is. Like, you can't, like, my attorney's like, dude, no, you can't talk about it. And then after a while, after keeping it oppressed over and over, and they put me on probation. I was on probation until December because I had to go, which was probably one of the best parts of the whole deal. I got to go work at a food pantry, and that was amazing. It was cool. I mean, I'm friends with the guy that owns the food pantry now, which is loosely associated with the outlaw biker gang. I just want to let you guys know that. Yeah, we found that shit out when I was down there. But that being said, guys, it was all over last year. So a lot of times I ask her, I say, this year with everything going on, I said, what was harder to deal with, last year or this year? And we by far were like, oh, last year was way harder to deal with. Yeah, because
like, in all honesty, my biggest thing is that, like, because the police officers, they overdid it. They, like, really overdid it. And I think my thing, it was like, if they would have did it a little bit further, John could have lost his life, okay? They would have came to my doorstep and told me their version of what had happened, which I know would not have been the full truth by any means.
Yeah, part of the reason why my attorney got it dropped is because their protocol, they should have called medical, because of the way I was in the car. And that was one of the reasons why they ended up dropping it, because they didn't call medical first. So medical was not on the scene when all this went down. And there was a lot of other little things. And during that time, And
I honestly felt it was like they would have came and told me the story, and it wouldn't have been the truth. And then that's what I would have had to live with. Do you know what I'm saying? Yep. So it's just kind of like, I mean, the whole situation, it was like two wrongs don't make a right. Of course, John, what he was doing was totally in the wrong. What the way the police officers had handled it was in the wrong. But the attorney came in, he obviously made it right. And I think another reason why we never really talked about it was because, like, I went through every emotion that you could possibly think. Like, John endured all the physical, and he still to this day doesn't remember exactly what happened. I went through a lot of all the emotional shit. I mean, any emotion that you can possibly think of, like, this woman went through, like, during that time. And, it was just, we learned a lot of it. I think that, even though you did hit rock bottom, there was just so many good things that came out of it. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like, no matter if you do hit rock bottom, like, that doesn't mean that's, like, you can't get yourself out of that. You know what I'm saying?
In hindsight, guys, I've been thankful for it. You know what I mean? I've been thankful for what had happened. And actually from day one, I was thankful. And there was so many moments that I felt like I was touched by God during.
God was with us.
He still is. But there's a lot of moments that occurred that were just unbelievable to me. Like, one of the things is a felony court judge came and got his dent removed. And I actually talked to him and got along with him. And the moment when he left, another guy came in. The other guy was preaching the word of God.
Yeah.
And it was just so strange. Like, I'm doing this dent work for a felony court judge in the same court that I'm going to. He was across the hallway.
Yeah.
And just the nicest guy ever. And we had this deep conversation, and I fixed his car. And he left. He had a little Honda CR-V. And just something occurred to me at that moment that was supernatural. I'm like, man, what the fuck is happening right here? And, just one of them things where you almost, everything's surreal, and you feel that chill go down your spine. And then right as that happened, another guy came in preaching the word of God. And to the judge as well. And I fixed his car. And it was just the combination of what he was saying and what the judge was sitting there. There was little moments like that just continuously happened. And then all of a sudden my attorney calls up. He goes, hey. He goes, can you come in at this time? And I'm like, dude, just tell me what the fuck you want to tell me. And he's like, they dropped the felony.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
it was
man,
it was a roller coaster, I would say.
Yep.
I mean, it's a roller coaster I don't ever want to get on again my entire life. No. No.
Y'all don't have to worry about that with your boy here. Like, I understand that.
It's you look at life a lot differently, and you understand things in a totally different perspective than what you previously, you looked at things and
What I've learned more about alcohol is that, like, literally, like, I'm a kind of person who lives my entire life trying to have control, right? And alcohol will lie to you and actually it will make you feel that, okay, so if I give this shit up, then I'm giving them control. But the truth is, if you feel that way about it, it's taking control over you. You know, it was controlling. It's like a drug, like a crack or like fucking, some shit like that for me. And like, it was controlling my actions. Like next thing you know, it went from having fun to I had to have it. And I would say if any of you guys, it's a lot better on this side. I'll be honest with you, man. And when you're drinking alcohol a lot, you'll lie to yourself on the other side of the fence. Now, if you can pick up a drink it and set it down, forget that it's even there, walk away, then you don't even have to fucking listen to what I'm saying right now. Okay, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. But if it offends you that I tell you that alcohol might be fucking your life up, then you probably got a problem. You probably got a problem. And it would have offended me. It would have offended me back then. I would almost think of it as like my precious, where you're willing to give up anything in your life for it. And, the my precious. Right? And I don't know, man. If any of you guys out there are living that life, you live in that feeling, it's better on this other side.
You know what's so crazy is for the longest time, and John's like, Angela, you need to quit doing this. But like when he came home, he didn't have his shoes or his hat. And I was so fixated on them damn shoes. I'm like, I wonder what happened to your shoes.
I swear to God, when I was in jail, some bum came in there talking about a new pair of shoes that he picked up. For real.
Oh, dear God. No, I'm so glad that this chapter is done and over with, because let me tell you, life has been grand. That's like now it's just like you go through that type of shit and you're like, all you want to do is just enjoy life and you just want to laugh.
And all I can say is, is that I feel that even during that time, I mean, I still did my thing, but imagine how much more powerful you are when you got 100% control of your time, y'all.
Yeah.
Like when you got 100% control of your time, your mind, your effort, you're free from that shit. You're free from the bondage of needing something outside of yourself. You become much more powerful. Like I have never felt more powerful in my life, inside and out. And I've never felt more fucking gratitude and hope for the future. And we live a good life, man. Like a fucking good life.
John was always like constantly apologizing, and I'm like, it's okay. Like I knew, like when I went into the hospital to see him, like I knew that he was going to be a different man. I knew that. He's like, I'm so sorry. He kept apologizing. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, you just kind of veered off the path for a little while. I'm like, but now you're back on it. And that's all that matters, right? That's all that matters.
It's all that matters. I mean, and I hope none of you guys have to experience what I experienced. No. But what I do encourage everybody to think about, there wasn't really a moment during that time that I didn't feel that everything was going to the good. Like I knew, like even when I was in jail and I was waiting for her to bail me out, and might I remind you that I actually, the very first time I went into the judge to get my bond, she told me that the police, and this had to be a mistake, like my attorney was like, they don't even do this for murderers, man. Like literally, so I go in front of this judge, she's getting ready to give me my bail, and she looks at they like assign you this attorney that'll talk back and forth to the judge, and the judge looks at her and she goes, well, I recommend that he gets set on his own recognizance, right? And the judge is like, well, I don't think the police recommend that. It looks like they set a $900,000. They're requesting a $900,000 bail. And she's like, he was sleeping in his car. And so anyhow, the judge got but listen, the judge literally got flustered, put the paperwork down and said, well, put him to the back of the line and bring him back up. So the whole time I'm sitting in the back of the line, I'm like calculating. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna cost me like a fucking $100,000 to get out. And I'm sitting here going like, holy fucking shit. Like, then I'm sitting there going like, is this fucking worse than what I think it is? And I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking bad. So like, I'm waiting in line. There's like 20 people ahead of me and all this shit's going through my head. And I'm like, She said fucking 900,000. That's almost $1 million. And I was sitting there thinking, like, scratching my head going, like, who the fuck? I was like, I've seen murderers get like $1 million. So we're going through the line and shit, get back in front of her. And I think just because she was embarrassed is why she put me on house arrest, because Tony, my attorney, he goes, man, they shouldn't have put you on that. You know, he goes, that was uncalled for. There's no reason. He goes, you own a business in the community. You're not no flight risk. You know, he just went on and on. But that being said, it scared the fuck out of me. So again, that should happen.
But you know what? When John was on house arrest, he got to know some of the people.
Oh, the people love me at the house arrest department.
They wanted to see like the best outcome.
They did.
And they were just like, listen, when all this is done and over with, please just stop by and like let us know what had happened.
They were introducing me to like people, and they're like, this is John. And I felt like I was like borderline famous at the fucking courthouse or some shit, And
it was a very interesting time during our life.
Yeah.
But everything worked out for the best,
Everything worked out for the best.
It really did.
It was supposed to happen, man. That's a learning lesson. I can't forget it. Drug on for about a fucking year. Think about that. About a year of my life that drug on.
Yeah.
And you can't fucking forget it. Like if it was like a DUI or something like that, I may have convinced myself that I was still cool. I was still good to go. And who knows where that would have got me. It was like, it beat me so bad, but then it didn't it let off and wasn't bad in the end, but it scared the fuck out of me. Almost like when you send your kid to a fucking prison and all the people are yelling and screaming at him and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go there. It's like I was fucking baptized in fire and then pulled out, and I sit here today, a free man.
You were fireproof.
Yeah, I sit here today, a free man and a better man. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't change a thing.
And I got my John back. Yeah.
Yep. One of these days, we're going to counsel you about how to stay together for 20 years, even if you got to go through some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. People would always tell me, they'd be like, Angela, you're such a strong woman. And I'm like, dear God, I do not feel like I was a strong woman during that time. I felt I was just crumbling inside. But I kept everything together, kept the family together. I mean, Jonathan learned a lesson in life, a big one. And because we've never sugarcoated or sheltered him from anything, we kind of always been completely honest about, we're all human, we all make mistakes, but you can learn from those mistakes and become a better person.
So right there it is, y'all. I don't have no fucking skeletons in my closet anymore. I just laid it all out for you.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the right time. I had wrote it in my book. I didn't know if I was going to wait for the book. I was almost going to drop it during this whole time with the George Floyd or the whole situation. But then I almost thought, I was like, I really don't want to come off and mix it in with that. I don't know. I was trying to figure out how I could deliver a message that would be inspiring without mincing it into something that's racial. You know what I mean? Even though, I did say that even though I'm white, I still failed the white privilege test.
Yeah.
Go through that white privilege test. If you're sitting here as me, I fail it. The whole thing, all the way from beginning to end. So,
I think I only have 2 fingers still up. So, I mean.
That's just because she's married to me. All right, y'all. We appreciate you. What's up, Matt? What's up? Oh, yeah, you're right, Matt. Drinking it held you back for 5 years, man, but you quit for 5 years, dude. That's good. What's going on, Chris? How you doing? What's up, Eddie? Appreciate it. Appreciate it, everybody. Nancy, thank you. Adam, everybody, thank you. Appreciate you guys. So don't do what I did. If you got a problem, recognize it. Get up out of it. Just be the best fucking version of yourself,
I know,
man.
with everything that's going on in the world, just be a good human.
And you know what?
Good human.
Like I said, this isn't even about people who can have a couple drinks and be cool. This is about people that, like me, that it turns into a fucking problem. Yeah.
You got your shit bag, baby. You's on fire right now. He's fucking fireproof, right? You were thrown in the fire. You're fireproof.
All right, everybody. So anyhow, appreciate it, Kevin. Appreciate it, Steve. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for coming along on this Tactical Dent Tech podcast.
And it's on Labor Day.
On Labor Day, and as usual, we're gonna see you on that next one.
And remember, it's all about the motherfucking hustle.